hash. Bonyeza star 811 star 817 hash.
Coronavirus disease is now spreading within counties in Kenya, from person to person through contact with droplets when an infected person speaks, coughs or sneezes, or through touching contaminated surfaces and objects. Anybody with a weakened body immunity has a greater risk of contracting coronavirus disease. People living with pre-existing medical conditions such as HIV, cancer, TB, diabetes, among others, must adhere to their treatment to strengthen immunity and therefore should ensure they have a constant supply of necessary medicines. Contact your clinic or health facility for information on how to access treatment. Help others within your network to access adequate supply of essential medicines. Ensure that you remain connected with your local networks for any support and follow the medical guidelines provided by your health facility to prevent coronavirus. Remember to stay updated with information on coronavirus using only trusted reliable channels. For more information on COVID-19, call 719 or dial star 719 hash. COVID-19 is preventable. Protect yourself, your family, and the community. This message has been brought to you by the Government of Kenya and its partners.
Live from Broadcasting House, this is Business Insight with me, O'Brien Kimani. On a day that after an acrimonious debate, the National Assembly has finally passed the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill. Which way for BBI next? This is a comprehensive coverage of the day's news. Welcome to the program. At O'Brien Kimani is my Twitter handle. At KBC Channel 1, let's engage. Our sign language interpreter is Lucy Maura. Our highlights is up next.
To see a day in this country, Mr. Speaker, when the sugarcane farmer in Kakamega is treated the same way with a coffee farmer in Central Province, Mr. Speaker.
The people of Mount Kenya region should speak. We should say why we live entirely in a whole region, in quarter by quarter portions of land, while people in this country, Mr. Speaker, still live in thousands and thousands of acres, Mr. Land.
The ball now in the court of Kenyans. Parliament adopts BBI bill after acrimonious debate. Kenya records 25 coronavirus-related deaths as the country caseload falls to 8%. And a date with fate, Wajir Governor MOHAMUD to face a Senate committee on his impeachment by the County Assembly.
Welcome to the news. Politics of marginalization dominated the Senate debate on Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill as senators from President Uhuru Kenyatta's backyard came under pressure to defend the government against an accusation of favoritism in public service. Kakamega Senator Cleophas Malala faced off with Kiambu Senator Kimani Wamatangi over ethnic balance in public service, despite the two of them being supporters of BBI bill.
Sat from morning to debate the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020 in a charged atmosphere.
Anyway,
in National Assembly, those opposed to the bill termed it draconian and deceptive, while the supporters dismissed their sentiments as false and divisive.
What this judicial ombudsman is going to do is exactly what President Moi, the late President Moi, did during his time. That judges will go to State House, they will present the judgment to the President, and they will come and read before a court of law.
if you listen to the sentiments by members opposed to this bill, they are not opposing it on the basis of the content. They are basing it on the issue that they are being sidelined. They don't say by who and how.
The third point, which will help us in accountability, Mr. Speaker, is that this House will have an empowered opposition wing to operate an office and also to stand tall to keep the government in check.
Other nations are discussing how to vaccinate their populations. Other nations are discussing how to manufacture the vaccines. But we are the only country in the world in the midst of a pandemic that are discussing a change of the Constitution.
In the Senate, senators supporting the BBI faced off on marginalization and ethnic balance in the public sector.
But I want to see a day in this country, Mr. Speaker, when the sugarcane farmer in Kakamega is treated the same way with a coffee farmer in Central Province, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to see a day in this country when the sugarcane farmer or a maize farmer in Kakamega County is treated the same way with an Irish potato farmer in Kirinyaga County, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that is what we call shared prosperity, Mr. Speaker.
The way the sugar farmers are suffering in Eastern Kenya, it is the same way our farmers, coffee farmers, in Central and the other places, Ukabani, and anywhere, anybody growing coffee, today is suffering. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, let them bring out their issues, but not try to insinuate that Central, maybe the favoritism to Central region is the one causing their, their suffering.
And Mr. Speaker, when we live a lie and when we live in denial, then we cannot solve the problems of this country. When we stand here, Mr. Speaker, and say this and this area has a comparative advantage over this other area for the following reasons, these are facts.
The people of Mount Kenya region should speak. We should say why we live entirely in a whole region, in quarter by quarter portions of land, while people in this country, Mr. Speaker, still live in thousands and thousands of acres, Mr. Land.
Will amend the Constitution Amendment Bill 2020. Kevin Washira, Channel 1 News.
Elsewhere, Kenya recorded 705 new COVID-19 infections from 8,853 samples tested in the last 24 hours. The country has also recorded 25 deaths over the same period. The new number of infection is representative of an 8% positivity rate.
Kenya's COVID-19 caseload climbed to 162,098 on Thursday after 705 people tested positive for the disease. The number of fatalities also rose to 2,850 following the confirmation of 25 more deaths. The number of hospital admissions currently stands at 1,086, 131 of whom are in the intensive care unit. In the last 24 hours, the country also recorded 711 recoveries from the disease. Meanwhile, a section of private industry players is calling on the government to involve them in the ongoing vaccination drive.
What's standing between us and vaccinating our people is an ordinary problem like washing our hands called cash flow. They just need cash to pay for the vaccine. And then the government brings the vaccine, or we bring the vaccine ourselves. And we are allowed to do this job, and we partner with government.
The whole issue around opening up our economy right now is about the vaccine. vaccinate yourselves, and therefore, once you get those 2 vaccines, we start opening up and we do things better.
They say the sector has the facilities and infrastructure necessary to step up vaccination in the country. Elsewhere, Kiambu Governor James Nyoro says the county health department remains on high alert and is doing everything within its power to stem the spread of the new COVID-19 variant in the country.
So what we are doing is to make sure that we increase our capacity, keeping the protocols on, so that we can be on our guard. We will continue to increase our oxygen facility availability. And we are planning to install a bulk tank in Wangige and also in Ruiru.
Kenya is on high alert following the discovery of the Indian COVID-19 variant in the country. Nancy Okware, Channel 1 News.
On out to politics over Wajir, and the Senate has established an 11-member committee to investigate the impeachment of Wajir County Governor MOHAMUD. The Wajir County boss was impeached by the County Assembly over corruption. The 11-member committee is expected to deliver its finding in 10 days for consideration by the Senate plenary.
Embattled Wajir County Governor MOHAMUD will know his fate in 10 days as the Senate investigates his impeachment by Wajir County Assembly.
Whereas by a resolution made on Thursday, 6 May 2021 afternoon sitting, the Senate resolved to proceed on this matter by way of a special committee pursuant to Section 33(3)(b) of the County Governments Act 2012 and Standing Order number 75(1)(b)(1).
To investigate the proposed removal from office by impeachment of the governor of Wajir County and to report to the Senate within 10 days of his appointment pursuant to Standing Order 75(2) on whether it finds the particulars of the allegations to have been substantiated. As many are... Yeah, it's a voice vote. As many are of that opinion, say aye. Aye. As many are of a contrary view, say nay. The ayes have it.
37 out of 47 Wajir MCAs voted to remove the governor from the office on allegations of abuse of office, gross misconduct, and gross violation of the Constitution. Both parties will present their case before the 11-member committee before consideration by the Senate plenary.
Inclined towards the committee. But Mr. Chairman, that's where now we as a House should really consider making some slight amendments to our standing orders. Mr. Speaker, I think there's a fear, I detect a fear that if the matter goes before the committee, according to the standing orders, if the committee decides that the allegations have not been substantiated, that is the end of the matter, and the rest of the senators will not have a say. In other words, it is possible that the matter can be killed at the special committee.
It is that kind of conviction, Mr. Speaker, that will help us to make decisions that are for posterity. It will help us, Mr. Speaker, to look even at the case of Wajir, not with the eyes that have concluded that the governor is guilty. Because some people walk to me, Mr. Speaker, and say, that guy is guilty, he must go home. The people of Wajir have said he must go. That is not the duty of the people of Wajir. This House, like you communicated, Mr. Speaker, is for us to look at the facts. If the facts, Mr. Speaker, say we must convict, we must convict.
If you feel you cannot discharge your responsibility, don't accept to serve on that committee. If you feel you have got some vestiges of bias or some hang-ups of some past relationships, don't accept to serve on that committee. Because justice must not only be seen, must not only be done, but must be manifestly seen to be done.
Gavana akipatikana na hatia anatakana aje kujitetea, lakini ikiwa ameonekana kwamba madai hayakuthibitishwa, bunge halitapata tena fursa ya kujadili ripoti hili. Kwa Mheshimiwa Spika, itakuwa imekuwa kwamba bunge ni kama conveyor belt. Tumekuja, tumesomewa mashtaka, tumesema yende kwa kamati, baada ya hapo hatuna jukumu lolote jingine la kufanya isipokuwa ni kunyamaza. Kinyume na wakati tutakapokaa hapa kama maseneta wote wa Jamhuri ya Kenya kuchunguza na kuhakikisha kwamba haki inatendeka. Mheshimiwa Spika, kumalizia ni kwa mimi naunga mkono bunge zima la Seneti kuchunguza swala hili la Wajir.
I don't want to put aspersions on anybody here, but no governor who has been taken to committee has ever been impeached. Can I be told why? But the ones who have brought to the plenary have all gone home.
Governor MOHAMUD now joins the growing list of county bosses to face the Senate over impeachment. Former Kiambu Governor Ferdinand Waititu became the first governor to be successfully impeached. For Channel 1 News, I'm Gladys Mungai.
Elsewhere, the Principal Secretary of State Department of University Education and Research, Ambassador Simon Nabukwesi, has called on Kenyans to embrace and exploit dryland farming to meet the country's growing food demand. Speaking during the 4th graduation ceremony, where 670 graduates were awarded various certificates and degrees, Taita Taveta University in Taita Taveta County, Ambassador Nabukwesi said it was paramount to plant drought-resistant crops and trees as part of conserving the environment. The university's Vice-Chancellor, Professor Fred Simiyu Barasa, said virtual learning played a key role in ensuring that students complete their courses on time.
It's an area that we have not exploited fully in this country. As you are aware, most of our country is dry, either semi or arid areas, and this university is in a semi-arid area where water shortage is the norm. And so dryland farming is something that can transform this community, this county, and our country, even the region, because this region has most of its parts quite dry. You can see even from the university that the environment has been changed through planting of trees. Trees that are found to be drought resistant, and therefore they have created a microclimate around here to make this university a nice place where one can feel as comfortable as you can be in any other part of the country that has sufficient rainfall.
Emphasizing the use of virtual learning, use of open distance and e-learning, which the university has taken up very seriously and very effectively. The graduates that you see today had a blended mode of preparation. There are some courses we taught face-to-face. A lot of others were online.
In a section of NYANDARUA County residents now want embattled County Assembly Speaker Degwa Wahome to give up the fight for his reinstatement. The residents claim the push and pull over the Speaker's issue is derailing operations of the County Assembly in particular and the implementation of county development programs in general.
Speaker Degwa Wahome has from the beginning of his year been on a warpath with MCAs in the county, the culmination being his impeachment of the 9th of February. It was the second impeachment, the first being on December 2020, but Wahome successfully challenged it based on procedural grounds. On Tuesday last week, Wahome got yet another reprieve after the High Court sitting in Nakuru reinstated him, ruling that the House did not have the requisite numbers to impeach him. But still, MCAs opposed to his leadership have blocked access to the Assembly precincts twice, with Wahome reporting that the Assembly mess had been stolen so as to paralyze the business of the House. And now a section of residents in the county want him to give up the fight, claiming he was derailing the Assembly business and the running of the county government.
Speaker atuondolee machafuko hiyo ametuletea hapa Nyandarua kwa sababu hapa tulikuwa tumekaa na amani. Sasa sisi hatuwe na amani na yeye. Ende akakae huko, alikuwa amekaa huko mwenyeki.
Alichaguliwa na MCA na wabunge wengine. Kwa hivyo tungemuomba ya kwamba aende kule bunge, akae chini na hao MCA waende wa sort their own issues.
They claim that they have been denied services and are attributing it to the protracted wars in the Assembly.
Achane na gavana wetu afanye kazi, atufanyie kazi. Yeye alichagua na wabunge, hakuchagua na sisi. Alichagua na mabunge, na wabunge ndio wamesema hawamtaki. Na kama mtu hata kwao hataki mpaka kwao hakuna mtu anamtaka, na kwao mwenyeki aenda kapumzike, achane na gavana wetu.
Nyandarua Governor Francis Kimemia has remained mum all the while, even after Speaker Wahome attributed his tribulations to him. Meanwhile, the leadership wrangles in Migori County continue to simmer, with the People's Democratic Party PDP, on which Governor Okoth Obado was elected, denying it had a hand in recent changes made in the assembly that saw the exit of South Sakwa MCA Oumangoro as the majority leader and South Kamagambo MCA Kevin Skeke as the majority whip. The duo had alleged Obado's hand in their ouster, terming it a scheme to further PDP's agenda in the county. But the new majority leader Nistroy Owiyo and majority whip Shadrach Nyawade led other ODM MCAs at the assembly grounds to refute the claims made by the duo.
Members of ODM unanimously chose us, the two of us, myself and my colleague on majority, to steer this leadership.
A majority leader is supposed to spearhead. To spearhead seriously the mandates and the aspiration of the party. If you fail to do that in the assembly, if you fail to bring that cohesion, that teamwork, then the party also fails.
On now to corridors of justice, where two suspects have been charged with intent to defraud an Italian citizen of 20 million shillings by falsely pretending they were in a position to facilitate transfer logistics for 2,000 kilos of gold to Dubai. The accused, Gideon Nuka and Steve Okute, pleaded not guilty and were granted a cash bail of 600,000 shillings, as Serafina Robbie reports.
A Nigerian national, Gideon Nuka Baravopna and Steve Okute have been charged on account of wanting to obtain money by false pretense. The two are accused of targeting to defraud an Italian citizen $185,000, equivalent to around 20 million shillings, at the DTB Bank Jomo Kenyatta Airport branch. This is by falsely pretending they were in a position to facilitate the transfer of logistics of 2,000 kgs of gold to Dubai on diverse dates between 1st of January 2021 and April 30th, 2021. Appearing before Chief Magistrate Francis Ndai at the Milimani Law Courts, Nuka and Okute pleaded not guilty and were granted a cash bail of 600,000 or an alternative bond of 1 million shillings. They are also required to deposit their passports. The case will be mentioned on the 20th of May this year. For Channel 1 News, I'm Serafina Robbie.
And the ongoing construction of the meter gauge railway from MAHIU Industrial Park to Longonot Town has triggered protest from landowners demanding compensation as the project nears completion. The over 100 landowners are accusing a Chinese contractor and the National Lands Commission of failing to honor their side of the bargain. They have vowed not to allow work to continue.
The construction site of the meter gauge railway from MAHIU Industrial Park to Longonot Town. Work has stalled, trucks packed, with workers nowhere to be seen after they were chased away by irate landowners who are demanding compensation for the parcels of land they gave up for the implementation of the 3.5 billion shillings project.
Hizo mashamba zote ploti 70 ambazo ziliadhiriwa, hao watu hawajapata kitu hata kuambiwa watalipwa nini. Na unaona hii mtambo ya reli iko karibu kuisha. Ninauliza, je, hii wakati mtambo itakuja kuisha, hao watu watapatikana namna gani? Si hiyo ni kumaanisha hao watu watakuja kudanganywa, kunyang'anywa mashamba yao na hii watu ya reli.
The over 100 landowners lamenting that the construction of the railway line is almost complete and they are yet to receive their dues. Efforts by police officers to return calm through pleading with the protesters hit the wall, with the landowners accusing a Chinese contractor and the National Lands Commission of taking them round in circles.
Nimeenda Ardhi House zaidi ya mara 10, wanatuambia mpeleke hiki, mpeleke hiki, mpeleke hiki, mkipeleka mnaambiwa mngojee. Tumengojea hata siku ya leo kanisa halijalipwa.
They also say that work at the construction site has made life unbearable due to dust and frequent earth tremors.
Hizo magari ziko na weight kubwa sana. Wakati tunalala tunatingizwa, manyumba yetu imetingizwa, manyumba imekuwa na crack. Manyumba hata watoto wanalia usiku. Wanauliza, nyumba inaanguka. Tunajaribu kulilia serikali, tumejaribu, tumeenda wapi? Tunarudishwa tu hapa.
The landowners have vowed not to relent in their quest to block the construction of the railway until their demands are met.
Sisi vile tumeamua kama watu ambao wameathirika na hii reli ni ya kwamba wao wamekuja kunyakua ardhi yetu, na kwa hivyo hakuna kasi itaendelea. Tunajua hii mtambo imekuja kuleta faida katika hii kijiji yetu ya Longonot, lakini tulipwe pesa zetu, kazi iendelee.
Reporting for Channel 1 News, I'm Safin Aching Oma.
To the counties now, where a woman has drowned while fetching water at the NDAKA-INI dam, sparking protest by locals over water scarcity. The mother is said to have gone to the dam after her water supply was allegedly disconnected by a local utility company. Irate locals have blamed the company for the tragedy, claiming that her death could have been avoided.
Irate residents of Wanyaga village are accusing a water supply company in the area of the death of a mother of four at the NDAKA-INI dam. The residents further complained of discrimination from the company, citing 10 previous deaths of residents trying to fetch water from the dam.
Kaboni haizingatii mikataba ya kwanza, na ile iliwekwa kati ya demu ikijengwa na watu walipalia ni wale wanabaki vile watakaa.
Also, a section of residents of Garimara in Meru County have gone to court seeking to stop the Kenya Defence Forces from using land they say is their own. According to the residents' advocate Marius Maranya, there are concerns that some individuals want to use KDF to evict them.
Hiyo ardhi watu wamejenga, wamekaa, wengine wamezaliwa wamekufia huko, watu wamezikwa huko. So tunaonelea hii ni ukora wale wa juu, kwa sababu sisi tunaamini yote hitu si ya watu wa KDF. Kuna watu wengine wamejificha ndani, wataka kuchukua ardhi wakisema ni watu wa KDF.
The case will be heard and determined by the court on the 26th of May this year. And Nyamira Governor Amos Nyaribo is said to appear before the Senate's County Public Accounts and Investment Committee to account for the use of funds in the county. Nyaribo took the reign following the death of John Nyagarama. Meanwhile, the Maasai Council of Elders in Narok has urged the government to consider allocating the council some funds in the annual national budget. Council Chairman Mr. Kelena Olenchoi decried the lack of funding was hindering them from traversing the vast county to solve disputes such as land and intercommunal conflicts.
Na niliomba rais siku hiyo pia atusaidie na serikali itusaidie ili tuweza kujenga kitu naitwa cultural center, ambaye cultural center itatusaidia ili tutunze mila utamaduni yetu ya Kimasai.
Finally, businessman Narendra Raval is calling on hospitals that receive oxygen from his manufacturing plants not to sell it. The businessman expressed his commitment to continue producing the commodity until hospitals manage to start their own plants to assist in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic.
The cost of the manufacturing the oxygen is kila siku ni milioni 3, lakini sasa napatia kwa hospitali. Hiyo ndio cost yangu, sio pamoja na profit, lakini sahi hiyo ni hewa kushapatiwa na Mungu bure. Mimi nitakapatia hiyo bure. Hawezi kuchukua pesa ya hiyo.
Yusuf Far, Channel 1 News.
You're watching Business Insight live from Broadcasting House. Our first break is coming up next, and thereafter we'll continue with more stories.
Je, umeomoka? Kama hujaomoka kwenye QuickBin ndio mambo yote. Hapa tuko na fridge, kodi yake ni CM. Tuko na gas cooker, kodi yake ni CK. Tuko na TV, kodi yake ni TV. Tuko na simu aina ya Samsung ni SM, ama Oppo ni Oppo. My friend, mahali popote unanitizama, eka hizo kodi zake kisha utume kwa 4032353. 4032353, alafu utakuwa unaomoka na hizi bidhaa. Kumbuka, kwenye QuickBin ni bidhaa bora zaidi kwa bei ya chini kwa chini.
Next on.
Well, I'm not going to tell anybody I'm pregnant, Nora. Please listen to me. Don't tell anybody.
Not a single soul, okay? I already know the reason why Lucio gave the letter to Amaya's daughter to separate her from Max.
And why?
Because Cesar forced him to write it.
Cesar?
Cesar.
These are the coordinates of the location of where the car fell and where they also found your shoe.
I can use this information to finally find where Lucretia decided to bury my mother. But there is nothing for me here.
How ungrateful you are. I thought you came here to ask for forgiveness after how you acted during the wait.
Next on.
Nyamaza wewe Simio. Wewe Paul Mr. Stories zenu. Wewe nyamaza.
Tulieni bana dakika mbili hata mtapita hii exam.
Fanya mnasoma, sasa mnashinda hapo.
I'm asking you.
Yes.
What are you looking at?
Miguna. Wewe joka kuja hapa wewe kwanza wewe. Simama vizuri. Simama poa. Unataka kuanguka unaanguka unaenda wapi? Ama nitakupanisha hapa chini sasa nipiganisha hiyo kichwa yako. Wanakunywa sipokavu. Sikia.
Na huo ni ungwana.
Tunakupa burudani.
Na umbea, yani stories zinazo trend kwenye mitandao ya kijamii.
See baby now we are two in one. We are two in one. Interview kali za wasanii wapendao.
Mguu pande panda milima. Izungushie hapo ma. Kama una
ndani ya March of Life kupitia KBC Channel 1 na Pwani FM.
Kuanzia mida ya saa 3 mpaka mida ya 5 kamili asubuhi. Ukiwa nami ni Teken 1GB.
Mimi ni Marco. Keep it locked.
Did you know that the policy document is evidence of the existence of an insurance contract between you and your insurance company? It is important to know the terms and conditions of your insurance policy. Make sure you obtain, read, and understand the terms and conditions of the policy document. Now you know. IRA, promoting insurance, protecting the insured.
Kenya is racing against time to complete the Lamu port and ensure that it is ready to receive its maiden ship in 2 weeks. The National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Ukur Yatani has exuded confidence that the first 3 berths at the facility that is expected to play a key role in facilitating trade would be ready by October this year. Here is our coast reporter Anboro with the details.
The first berth at the multi-billion shillings Lamu Port project is almost complete as the government fast-tracks processes to operationalize it in a fortnight. Addressing stakeholders at the Lamu Port Yard, National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Ukur Yatani exuded confidence that the first berth would be ready this month, while the other 2 berths, whose construction is being financed by the government, would be complete by October this year.
I want to confirm that we are very delighted that now we are towards the tail end of opening the Lamu port to the users. We put a number of systems, procedures in place. The Kenya Port Authority have undertaken to facilitate payment for the construction. The first berth is complete. The second berth is almost 97% complete. The third berth will be completed end of October. So the 3 berths will be ready for business.
Kenya is expecting the maiden ship to dock at Lamu Port on the 20th of this month.
We've given ourselves 20th of this month as to when we are going to have the first ship to dock in Lamu.
The Kenya Ship Agency Association is urging the government to offer incentives in efforts to attract more investors and businesses to Lamu Port to drive its growth.
The incentives that need to be in place are about cargo storage, and we've talked about it with everybody, Kenya Ports Authority, Kenya Revenue Authority, documentation speed, seamless movement of documents, and availability of free storage days, as we said, so that a ship owner who wants to use, let's say, the port of Lamu, as many inquiries will be coming, then they are able to be competitive, especially for a new port. An introductory tariff will be necessary.
The Kenya Port Authority is availing equipment and personnel to operate Lamu Port.
Kenya Ports Authority have deployed necessary equipment, have deployed necessary competence in terms of staffing. They have put ICT systems. They have put all the necessary equipment and personnel to enable to start the operation of the port.
The high-powered government team has pledged to visit Lamu Port again before 20th of this month to check its status. The first ship is expected to dock at this Lamu Port facility on the 20th of May. And according to the Cabinet Secretary Ukuri Yatani, berths number 2 and 3 should be complete by October this year. For Business News from Lamu Port, I am Anboro.
Well, reporter here, Ann Mboro, giving us an update on the construction of Lamu Port. Something interesting about the port is that it has the deepest berth on the eastern seaboard of Africa. And it's going to be actually much bigger than the port of Mombasa once it's completed, with about 28 berths. Something to watch out. Well, Kenya has relaxed conditions imposed on maize importation from Tanzania following a presidential directive clearing maize trucks from the Tanzania border point. The Food and Agriculture Authority has reduced the process of getting import papers to a day, with the importers required to register with the authority's IME system and present a copy of the certificate during registration to the inspectors.
As at of end of March this year, only one importer had met the stringent regulations set by the government to import maize from Tanzania. The rules were put in place by the government after it lifted a blanket ban on maize imports from the neighboring countries on concern of high aflatoxin levels. However, after bilateral talks between President Uhuru Kenyatta and his Tanzania counterpart Samia Suluhu, the two countries agreed to relax trade restrictions to facilitate movement of goods and services between Kenya and Tanzania.
Certificate ikiwa issued Tanzania, kama mtu amekuwa checked Tanzania, basi hiyo certificate iwe sawa kwa aingie Kenya, na vice versa, ndio watu wafanye biashara zao.
The Agriculture and Food Authority now says to fast track the process, all importers will be registered through a fast IME system and present a copy of the certificate of registration to the inspector at the border point. Upon successful application, an importer shall be issued with the registration certificate online within the same day of application. The importer will also be required to have a certificate of conformity from a competent authority in the exporting country. This is to certify the safety of the consignment, and the produce will not be subjected to any further analysis. The announcement has been welcomed by traders who said it will promote seamless trade between the two neighboring countries.
Tulikasirika kuona kwamba mahindi zimefungua kutoka nchi ya Tanzania. Kwa hivyo tunafurahia sana sasa hivi kuona kwamba rais ameshaongea, mahindi itaingia kwenye Kenya na biashara itaendelea kama kawaida.
Shukuru sana kama ile usumbufu ya maofisa ya serikali ambao wako hapa mpakani itaondoka, ili sisi tuwe tunafanya kazi kwa njia nzuri ambayo haina usumbufu.
Benson Rioba reporting for Channel 1 Business.
Over-regulation and stringent policies during the COVID-19 pandemic are hurting businesses. BIDCO Africa Chairman Vimal Shah says without a compromise on COVID-19 pandemic restrictions, fewer businesses can create jobs, new ventures and participate in social impact activities.
Private sector activity plunged in April, contracting for the first time in 11 months after fresh COVID-19 restrictions measures were imposed to contain a third wave of coronavirus infections. However, business owners say there is need for a more empathetic approach to COVID-19 restrictions.
I think sometimes where I come from, we see that
there is over-regulation at times. And I think when we become now one country with 47 counties, we're bringing in so much more regulation. We are not increasing the pie size. I would rather focus on people saying, how do I increase the entire GDP of Kenya? How do I increase the GDP in my county, in my place, and say, fine.
The monthly Stanbic Bank Kenya Purchasing Managers Index market shows that job losses coincided with the sharpest decline in orders since May last year as businesses scaled down operations, with some seeking diversified revenue streams.
Consumers have gone frugal. They're not buying as much as they used to before. A lot of people are working from home or even not working, right? And therefore, this is the time for us to make sure it's not about profits, it's not about this, but it's about sustainability.
Speaking Thursday during the launch of a partnership between Equity Afya and Bidco Africa in support of lactating and pregnant mothers, corporate leaders urged their peers to involve themselves in more social impact activities, despite the strain caused by coronavirus pandemic, and choose supporting lives as opposed to only focusing on profits.
By being focused on some key thematic areas that really are at the foundation of transforming lives and livelihoods. Of course, the first one is health. You cannot claim to transform life and livelihoods if you don't have health.
Being good is more important than just doing good, because being good means what you do, you are doing it in a happy, healthy way, and you are enhancing that all across. Because if you take it and say, only if I make profits, then I will give, then supposing in the last 2 years, many companies, many people have not made any profits, they're losing money, they're shutting down, we've had lockdowns.
Employment conditions worsened last month as private firms cut jobs for the first time in 7 months, hurt by month-long travel restrictions and longer nighttime curfews in Nairobi, Machakos, Nakuru, Kiambu and Kajiado counties to control the spread of COVID-19.
Since the advent of COVID-19, not many businesses and industries alike have been able to do their social impact activities, mainly due to budgetary constraints and restrictions thereof. However, going forward, there is no simple trade-off between the economy and health. We shall only wait and see how it levels off. Alan Aoko, Channel 1 Business, Nairobi.
Small medium enterprises in the manufacturing sector have called for financing to enable them take advantage of opportunities in the Africa Continental Free Trade Area after agreement. SMES says they continue to face unique challenges, which calls for tailor-made solutions to enhance their growth.
The coming into force of the African Continental Free Trade Area on 1st of January 2021 symbolized the commencement of trading under preferential terms within Africa. However, there exist some challenges that hinder its implementation. Some of these include underdeveloped transport and logistics network across the continent, overlapping membership to trade blocs, non-uniform order in the clearance of logistics, unfamiliar customs and administrative procedures, and transit policies of goods across different regional economic communities among countries with no functional trade arrangements. Speakers at a virtual African Continental Free Trade Area forum hosted by the Kenya Association of Manufacturers noted that SMEs face unique challenges, which calls for tailor-made solutions to enable them reap the full benefits of new trade opportunities in Africa to enhance their growth.
There has been an initiative to come up with the funding for SMEs, tailor-made for SMEs. With this, currently some 7 banks signing up into this program.
On the resource mobilization side, there will be 4 basic areas of getting this funding. There will be contribution by state parties. There will be grants, concessionary loans that will seek to get from Africa, from outside Africa, whoever wants to support this initiative to help people push on these challenges.
We've come up with tailor-made solutions to be able to support them, handhold them, build their capacity to be competitive. Just most recently, we worked with Keproba to help them look at their product quality, product diversification strategies, branding and packaging.
Financial institutions have been urged to increase lending to SMEs to enhance their competitiveness, as it will create a level playing field between them and products manufactured in other markets.
Businesses will need more than cash. They will need skills. They will need experts to come and rework their systems. They will need people to come and train them in how to do things better than they had been doing before, or suddenly suffering because of competition.
8 financial institutions have sealed a deal to offer mortgage to homeowners at the BUXTON affordable housing project in Mombasa County upon its completion in a year's time. The deal, brokered by the national government, is aimed at encouraging Kenyans to buy the available 1,865 housing units.
The 6 billion shillings BUXTON housing project in Mombasa is slowly gaining momentum, with the national government outsourcing financial institutions to cushion potential buyers tapping into the investment. 8 banks have already pledged to subsidize mortgage loans to less than 9% as an alternative to the current tenant hire purchase scheme in place.
Are going to offer mortgages to the people of BUXTON at single digit. Tutaweza kutengeneza ya kwamba you are able to pay kulingana na mfuko wako.
Housing Department PS Charles Hinga has lauded local investors floating the project despite the setbacks incurred in the past.
Affordable housing should not be confused for cheap and poor quality. And instead of castigating our local investors, we must encourage them.
Hinga has attributed the slow pace of implementing housing projects across the country to countless court battles from private developers backed by the political class.
This idea that we can campaign at the back of the poor people and show that you're the only one who can be able to kuwakomboa ili unasimamisha anything that is developmental, we are past that one now.
BUXTON project developer Suleiman Shahbal says the project has so far created 3,000 job opportunities for the local community.
Sisi tunafanya bidii kuhakikisha kwa tunafanya estate ya fahari, estate ya hali ya juu kwa bei ambayo mwananchi ataweza kuafford. Maendeleo ni kubadilisha mazingira, ni kubadilisha fikra za watu, ni kuwapa watu opportunities ya kugrow.
The fact that you have incorporated young people, you're going to plant 2,000 trees. You've got the other people who are working in the call center, wenzetu ambao pia tumewaleta kwenye hiyo kazi. The fact that you're incorporating to ensure that there will be students living in here, it is a project of many fasts.
The PS was speaking at the sales launch of the project, where various stakeholders present hailed the financial muscle aid from the government.
Kwamba ile mikataba iliyowekwa na wale waliokuwa wakikaa BUXTON usibadilishe hata herufi moja.
Baadaye hata wale walikuwa wanapinga pia watabadilika na waone manufaa ya hiyo project ambayo inakuja.
Juni Karisa from Mombasa County.
And Tourism Cabinet Secretary Najib Balala has backed the change of tag by the United States COVID-19 vaccines as it throws its support behind the move by the World Trade Organization to temporarily lift patent production for coronavirus vaccines. Balala says the move will maximize production and distribution of the vaccines to the global population and to reignite travel.
India and South Africa were the leading voices in a group of about 60 countries, which for the last 6 months have been trying to get the patents on COVID-19 vaccines set aside. The proposal, which was first introduced before the World Trade Organization last fall, covered patents, industrial designs, copyrights and protection of trade secrets. However, they have been met with a strong opposition from the US, the UK and the EU, who are concerned that low and middle income countries were being left out after wealthy nations reached deals with vaccine makers. If approved, proponents say the waiver would allow production of vaccines to be ramped up and provide more affordable doses for less wealthy countries. Tourism Cabinet Secretary Najib Balala has added his voice on the debate, opining that the move will maximize production and distribution of the vaccines to the global population and reignite travel. Developing countries have argued that rules requiring countries to protect patents and other forms of intellectual property are an obstacle to increasing the production of vaccines and other products needed to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic. The head of the World Health Organization, Tedros Adhanom, termed the U.S. decision historic and said it marked a monumental moment in the fight against COVID-19. However, pharmaceutical companies have voiced their opposition, insisting that patents are not the primary obstacle and cautioned that the move could stifle innovation. Currently, wealthy nations account for more than half of nearly 9 billion doses locked up in purchase agreements to date. Regina Manyara reporting for Channel 1 Business.
Over 100 smallholder farmers groups in West Pokot are set to benefit from a grant under the Kenya Climate Smart Agriculture Project aimed at increasing agricultural productivity. The 5-year project seeks to build resilience to climate change risks.
Reducing tillage, expanding crop rotation, planting cover crops and reintegrating livestock into crop production systems are some of the measures backed to mitigate the effects of climate change on agriculture.
Wengine watafanya mradi ya mbuzi aina ya jalabak, wengine watafanya green grams, wengine watafanya mradi ya mtama, wengine watafanya mradi ya kuondoa maji tunaita township, wengine wanafanya project ya mradi ya dairy, na wengi wao indigenous chicken. Kwa hivyo pesa ambayo mtapewa wakulima ambao mko mbele yetu ni ya kuwasaidia kwa hali ya food security, ili muwe na chakula kwa meza na pia muwe na pesa ya kuwasaidia kwa mambo yenu ya kila siku.
To support this, the Kenya Climate Smart Agriculture Project has rolled out a 5-year project targeting over 100 smallholder farmer groups in West Pokot County to boost productivity and resilience. So far, 21,000 2-month-old chicks, 1,200 gala goats, and 285 doper sheep and an assortment of farm machinery have been distributed to farmers across West Pokot County. Elsewhere in Kitui County, the National Drought Management Authority has begun distribution of broiler chicks, solar panels and incubators to farmers in Sekuru, Kitui County in efforts to commercialize poultry farming in the area.
We have got 8 county villages. Each of them has been given a complete set of solar panels, the battery and the incubator. And it's the communities who chose where to place this for purposes of security and also accessibility. So after doing that, the 9th one is what we call now the learning area, the learning center, whereby it will be a demonstration area where in case of challenges, they are able now to go there and they are told on how to work on the new methodologies that are coming.
The farmers will also be trained on best farm practices to boost productivity. Regina Manyara reporting for Channel 1 Business.
Well, the government should prioritize the manufacturing sector in the next budget to spur production that would help create wealth and jobs. This is according to Shaju's CEO, Dr. Julian Srowa, who believes that manufacturing holds the key in lifting the Kenyan economy that has been battered by the COVID-19 pandemic. Tonight on the Business Insight, Regina Manyara interrogated Dr. Rowa's pre-budget expectations.
Good evening. You're watching Business Insight and I'm Regina Manyara. Now we're going to be focusing on matters of fiscal planning. Does Kenya have it right or are there errors that we need to correct? To take us through this conversation is none other than Dr. Julian Rowa, CEO Shaju's. Thank you, sir, for your time. Now, we'll start from that point. Let's just give us your perspective or your take in regard to where we sit or stand in as far as the economy is concerned.
Different people will have different view on where the economy is at present. There are the optimists who will say that our infrastructural development is well thought in terms of the capabilities it gives the country for future growth and development, and they're entitled to that view. But there are those of us who will also argue that there would have been a better need to refocus our energies to something more substantive that is more direct in the implications of people's lives. So if you look at what Corona or COVID-19 has done, The question then becomes, should we change our focus, move away from macro level of economics to something a little bit micro, with a more direct interest in the area of SMEs? You and I know that SMEs are not in a very good place right now. And SMEs actually are the drivers of the economy. So if they're not doing well, if the business is shrinking, if the human resources that they employ are having to be redeployed or to be shed off, then we have a fundamental problem in our hands. So if you're to ask me, there are different schools of thought, but I would argue that we have a problem and we need to rethink or reimagine what we want to do with our economic plan.
Now, talking about focus and reimagining, we look at projections in terms of expenditure for the financial year 2020-2021.
Yeah.
Yes, we're looking at around 3 trillion, up from 2.9 trillion in the previous financial year.
Yeah.
What, in your opinion, then would take priority in our fiscal planning for the next financial year?
I think for me, the ambitious projects that have been laid out by the government, specifically if you look at the issues of infrastructural development, which have very heavy capex outlay, we may want to rethink whether investing in infrastructure at this point in time is a priority area. Mention has also been made, although that has gone quiet in recent months or years, about the agenda, Big Four agenda, where we are talking about universal healthcare, we are talking about nutrition, food security and nutrition, we are talking about manufacturing, and we're also talking about, there's a fourth one, housing, if I'm not wrong. If you look at those again, with the exception of manufacturing, and probably healthcare, because healthcare is important for driving the economy. I'm very, very worried, or I don't think that housing should be a priority area for us. Much as in the long run, definitely we will need to think about how people settlement is addressed. Now you've talked about expenditure, from 2.9 to 3 trillion. That means we need another 1 trillion to fund the budget. The question is, how do we fund
the budget? Before we even talk about the budget, you've said that for you, priority, affordable housing is not quite a priority. However, you give priority to matters of healthcare. What other sectors do you think the government needs to concentrate on in as far as fiscal planning is concerned?
I think manufacturing. Because within manufacturing, if there's a way you can spur manufacturing and create more production, under manufacturing you're creating wealth. So you're not really looking at sunk costs. You're looking at a cost that is incurred to incentivize production. So that for me would be a priority area for me. What else? When you think about the outlook of the fiscal planning, recurrent expenditure is becoming a big issue as well. We are spending so much money on paying people whose productivity again still becomes a question for debate. Do we need to rationalize so that we can bring the cost of our recurrent expenditure down?
Bikere, as a taxman, has quite the role there.
Yeah.
We have been seeing over the last few years it has not met its target.
Yeah.
Will it, when it's crucial for government to rake in this revenue, do you think from where I sit it is going to meet its target this year?
We have to give it to the Commissioner General. I hope that is his title. At KRA, he's really put up really detailed measures to expand his collection base. And I don't know about you, but I'm a beneficiary of so many texts reminding me about what I'm meant to do here, what I'm meant to do there, issues to do with land rates and rates. This constant reminder around that. And I remember a couple of times my KRA relationship manager has been in touch with me. This is something that had not happened before. So I think in terms of his strategy going forward, he is very, very, very clear. My only issue remains, we are probably still focusing on the same pool of people to collect when we should actually be thinking about expanding that bracket so that many people come in and then we are able to actually bake a bigger pie. I don't know to what extent he has been successful in putting that in place. Issues of digitization would also be very critical at this particular time if he was to be successful in collecting enough to be able to fund the budget. So I have a twofold response to that. One, with his level of aggression and very linear focus on what he intends to do, I have a feeling he may surprise us by way of probably exceeding, and this is hypothetical. But again, this has been slowed down by the recent ruling by Justice Odunga, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, suspending the 1% turnover tax.
Exactly. So then the question for me that arises is, did he see that coming? And if he saw that coming, did he assess that risk and put in mitigation measures so that of continuing with this strategic objective is not defeated. So I have a very good feeling about what the Commission is trying to do, and I have a very strong belief that he may actually end up achieving his target if all other players come on board. But it's a very delicate issue at the moment. Yeah.
Now, the issue of debt management.
We have a big problem. A very, very big problem. If you'll allow me to share with you some statistics.
Go ahead.
And allow me to quote as well. According to the 2021 budget policy statement, Kenya's debt in June 2020 stood at 7.06 trillion. That is equivalent to 65% of our GDP. IMF insists that our loan obligation must not go beyond 40% of GDP for developing countries. So that alone is an issue. Business Daily, I quote, this is Treasury report on post-COVID-19 economic recovery strategy, which stated that our debt actually stands at 8.41 trillion. Now remember, there was the 1 trillion that we need to raise.
The deficit.
Talking about a ceiling of 9 trillion, which is, I think, what we have revised it to. We don't have much headroom. The question then becomes, how do you intend to fund that or finance that deficit? We know that IMF has come to town. They'll definitely come with a very painful dosage for us to take.
Now, talking about dosage, we expect that LPG will no longer be zero rated and it's going to attract a VAT of up to 16%. Then, how then is this going to affect the purchase power for Wanjiku, or rather impact on the cost of living?
Definitely, the cost of living is going to go up. The purchasing power is going to go down. What that does that then mean? That we have very little money. What's the right phrase to put it? There's very little money competing. There are so many competing demands for very little money. And then that begs the question, will we still be able to meet our other obligations? If the purchasing power is low, it simply means that we're not sparing or we're not consuming enough so that we can also accelerate or motivate production. So it's a very interesting cycle, and this is something that really needs to be thought through again. So just taxing people for the purposes of collecting does not really solve the problem.
Would now widening the tax bracket and bringing in the informal sector, given that this presence of the large and informal sector, being untaxed, they're not within the tax bracket, then would it change the dynamics if indeed we...
I believe it would. I believe it would. But we have to be very sensitive with regard to what extent do we want to tax the informal sector space, so much so that we do not again kill the goose that lays the golden egg. But I think it's in everybody has an obligation. I mean, the service delivery being offered to you by government, be it in health, be it roads, any kind of infrastructure, you are also enjoying just like any other Kenyan. So we are obligated to pay our taxes. But we have to be very clever and creative in how we subject this particular sector to taxation. We've talked about purchasing power. I mean, you don't want to tax them and strangulate their business at the same time. Let us project a country on an informal sector that also or create jobs for others. If you're able to do that, then we're again widening the tax bracket. But it can only happen if we are creating wealth, and we must enable the informal sector to create wealth for themselves and for the country.
The COVID-19 disruption has heavily hit MSMEs, and one of the conversations around the private sector is for government to come up with an economic stimulus to support them through these businesses. Talking about that particular stimulus and targeting and looking at the MSMEs then, are banks ready to actually support MSMEs when it comes to this stimulus, especially with, credit facilities? Are we ready?
First, I'll be the first one to confess that the much-hyped economic stimulus package that was announced sometimes last year to cushion MSMEs against COVID-19, there's been no trickle effect, at least none that I've felt. So the question then becomes, how was this product packaged and how was it designed to work? Is MSMEs feeling it? The few that I've had the privilege to interview tells me that they can't feel it. Now, to your question as to whether banks are prepared, my background is banking, and I will tell you without a shadow of doubt that our core business as banks is making money.
And as you make money, I also have a counter. Some 2 weeks back, we saw some banks coming out saying that they're not going to be giving their dividend payouts because of COVID-19 disruptions. But just how much money is enough for commercial banks?
Well, this has always been an issue of debate for me, and I've had to really think. I mean, are we being fair at the amount of interest that we levy on some of the loan facilities that we give out? The profits being made by banks, I mean, they're making mega bucks. I would call it abnormal profit, which simply means that if you cut your profit margins by a certain whatever and reach a bigger space of people, you'll actually be participating more in catalyzing economic growth and development. But they have shareholders who have expectations. And what are they looking at? They're looking at the bottom line. So banks, by design, want to make as much as they could. Now, under COVID, and this is where the paradox is, under COVID, the question then becomes, if you don't support those businesses or the individuals that have borrowed from you, how sustainable is your business as a bank?
Bringing the question of non-performing loans that have been on an increase. What do we say about that?
It's a big mess. And I don't think banks have been imaginative enough or innovative enough to work around it. Reasons I say that, you're looking at CRB listing of about 14 million Kenyans. Now, if you're listed in CRB, it simply means that there's no room for you to borrow. But banks still need borrowers. So how do those dynamics work? I think we have to go back and rethink.
And as we are rethinking, then come in the fintechs, where Kenyans look at the statistics that we've had. Kenyans are now borrowing online, through their mobile platforms.
Interesting, yeah.
The death of the banking sector, but the rebirth of fintech. There's someone actually quoted that. But is it the solution?
Fintech further accelerates the problem, because what it simply does, it's just another channel of service delivery. But at the end of the day, they're still selling money. The question is, what are the policies or the principles that govern lending so that it is prudent in the way that it is done? Otherwise, I see fintech is just another channel of distribution. So when you're looking at the 14 million Kenyans listed in CRB, I can promise you that a big chunk of this is coming from the digital space in financial lending. I mean, we're talking about 1.63 trillion in restructured loans in banks, meaning they are not performing. 54% of the total loan book. That's a crisis.
Where does this leave these banks? Because I'm looking at the growing loan book for a majority of these commercial banks then. What options do they have?
Theoretically, somebody will tell you this loan is unperforming, or we have a fallback. Yes, let's auction it. But we are faced with a situation where there is nobody to buy. And this is why you remember my earlier comment that banks need to be more innovative in the way that they're doing things. The problem we are facing now is unique. It is not what we had 5, 10, 20 years ago. And until we come up with new measures to counter this, banks are going to face a huge problem. Now, I see this situation really becoming worse. Although, give it to Kenyans, we are very resilient. It's just a way we can come out of all this mess, and you'll find again things are back to normal in a space of 2 to 3 years. But that again will be by chance. We need everything to be deliberate. Banks must go back to the drawing board and ask the question, how do we support our customers that are in distress in a way that gives them sufficient room to find their foot again to start driving their businesses the right way.
Before we move away from matters banking, then is the option of risk-based interest, is that an option when it comes to our banking sector?
Well, but how do you compute risk-based interest? What parameters are you going to employ? For me, COVID has taught me that surprises will hit you from all directions. So how we used to assess risks for 5, 6, or let's say in fairness 12 months ago is not the same way we are going to to do it today. The question then becomes, what are the surprises coming and how do we mitigate it? So I find a lot of these measures to be a bit more theoretical. But I want to believe that COVID is teaching us to think differently on how we approach our business risk mechanisms, so that it can be a lot more broader based, and then people can foresee and mitigate some of the problems that we may face with pandemics such as COVID-19. But if you are telling me about risk-based, to some degree it could help, but I don't see it as the ultimate solution to the complications that we are facing.
What I'm hearing from you as far as the banking sector is concerned is that we need to adapt, then adopt.
Too traditional for our time. We must do exactly what you've said.
Good. Yeah. Now, as we come to a conclusion, Wanjiku is ever expectant when we have the budget being read. If you're given an opportunity to make this budget, we've already seen what the BPS has to offer. How would you go about it to make it more palatable for Wanjiku?
Yeah, I had some thinking around that, and a few things that I think should be a priority for all of us. One, if you really want to help Wanjiku, the biggest problem Wanjiku is facing right now are the side or after effects of the COVID malady. And until we can put Wanjiku at a place where her health is assured, we will continue to have a problem as a country. I think healthy, happy people produce more. So that for me would be a critical area of support. Wanjiku is running the small enterprises. Can we get an economic stimulus package that trickles down to that level? How do we incentivize Wanjiku so that production can be assured? That would be an issue for me for concern. And then, of course, there's been a lot of talk around women and youth. So targeting Wanjiku within that category, how can we fund them? I know we've had concepts in the past that I think have failed, but largely because the operationalization has not been properly thought through. So you dish out money to try and support a certain business concern or entity, but the aspect of collection, security, collateralization, etc., bringing accountability and responsibility to the people that we lend to, that has not been very well thought through. But I think the youth, and I think Wanjiku, covers a big chunk of the youth in this country and women. If we focus on that and come out with very, very special packages, we could be of help to Wanjiku. Of course, tax reliefs, and we've talked about that already. And then most important, if we can beat corruption and unethical practices, both in government and in the private sector, a lot of that can accrue as benefit to Wanjiku, directly or indirectly. So those are some of the things that I would quickly think of. Yeah.
Well, if you tuned in, we have been discussing matters of the economy with a focus on fiscal planning. Our guest this evening has been Dr. Julian Roa, who is the CEO of Schedules, who says if he was given an opportunity to be part of the people who are calling shots in as far as fiscal planning for the country is concerned, among the things that he would prioritize is the manufacturing sector with a keen focus on MSMEs, giving them an economic stimulus package that trickles down to them, as well as the health sector, given that we are riding the COVID-19 pandemic. Healthy people are happy people who produce more. You have been watching Business Insight. I'm Regina Manyara.
Thank you.
If ever there was a count that counted, then this is it. For the first time ever, Kenya will undertake a national wildlife census on land and sea, officially launching at the Shimba Hills National Reserve. This count will give a picture of our national heritage and support the ongoing conservation efforts. The Great Census. Every animal counts. Funded by the government of Kenya. Count to conserve.
We believe in one God, the Father, the Almighty, maker of heaven and earth and all that is seen and unseen. We believe in one Lord, Jesus Christ, the only Son of God, eternally begotten of the Father, God from God, light from light, true God from true God, begotten, not made, one in being with the Father. Through him all things were made, for us men and for our salvation.
Ili kupata sikiza tune hiyo ya Nissin Creed, bonyeza *811 *961#. Bonyeza *811 *961#.
Je, umeomoka? Kama hujaomoka kwenye QuickBit ndio mambo yote. Hapa tuko na fridge, kodi yake ni CM. Tuko na gas cooker, kodi yake ni CK. Tuko na TV, kodi yake ni TV. Tuko na simu aina ya Samsung ni SM, ama Oppo ni Oppo. My friend, mahali popote unanitizama, eka hizo kodi zake kisha utume kwa 4032353. 4032353, alafu utakuwa unaomoka na hizi bidhaa. Kumbuka, kwenye QuickBit ni bidhaa bora zaidi kwa bei ya chini kwa chini.
Next on
Well, let's move on, where Twitter will henceforth prompt users to review and revise potentially harmful or offensive replies. The social media platform, which has faced criticism over abusive user behavior, tested the feature last year. Twitter said the test showed that the prompt reduced offensive replies. Here are more details.
The company says it would roll the prompts out to English language accounts using Twitter on Apple and Android. In a blog post, Twitter said they had found that prompts led 34% of people to revise their initial reply or to decide against sending their reply at all. The firm says users composed on average 11% fewer offensive replies after being prompted for the first time. Tech platforms have grappled in recent years with how to police offensive content, abuse and harassment on their platforms. Twitter's most recent statistics for January to June last year show that the platform removed potentially offensive content posted by 1.9 million accounts and suspended 925,700 accounts for violating Twitter rules. Elsewhere, Microsoft has added several new features to Teams designed to support educators and students in creating a holistic learning environment for the next chapter of education. Among others, the new features will provide for personalized learning for each and every student, organize the online classroom experience, and make assignments more engaging, organized, and fun. The new features also allow teachers to better understand students' engagement and emotional well-being, while also encouraging class participation during synchronous learning for better hybrid and remote classes. According to Barbara Holzapfel, Microsoft's Vice President for Education, the new tools and updates are designed to support the 5 key areas that help teachers create a holistic learning environment and move education forward. Finally, Asian shares rose on Thursday and commodity prices held near multi-year highs as investors switched to cycle course amid hopes of a strong economic recovery, while the Australian dollar fell after China said it would end economic dialogue with Canberra. MSCI's broadcast index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan rose 0.25%, and Japan's Nikkei jumped 1.8% as it reopened after a 5-day holiday. Chinese shares, also resuming trade for the first time since last week, were mixed in early trade, with the Shanghai Composite of 0.45% and CSI 300 down 0.2%.
The Policyholders Compensation Fund, PCF, would like to notify Concord Insurance Company Limited policyholders and beneficiaries that the payment period to lodge their claims has been extended for an additional 30 days. The new deadline is now 14th May 2021. All claimants of Concord Insurance Company Limited are required to download the claims form from PCF website www.pcf.go.ke, IRA website www.ira.go.ke, or pick the form from PCF offices, 2nd floor, ZEP Replace, Longonot Road. Fill the form in duplicate and attach copies of the required documents. Submit to PCF for verification, approval, and processing of payment. All payments will be made in line with the fund's guidelines and procedures. PCF, the fund you can trust.
If ever there was a count that counted, then this is it. For the first time ever, Kenya will undertake a national wildlife census on land and sea, officially launching at the Shimba Hills National Reserve. This count will give a picture of our national heritage and support the ongoing conservation efforts. The Great Census. Every animal counts. Funded by the Government of Kenya. Count to conserve.
Well, time now for sports, where world marathon champion Ruth Chepngetich has been named the Sport Journalist of the Year Award, Personality of the Month for April. Chepngetich smashed the world half marathon record early last month, clocking a time of 1 hour and 4 minutes at the NYANDARUA Istanbul half marathon to shave 29 seconds off from the old mark.
World Marathon champion Ruth Chepngetich took 29 seconds off the world record to win the NYANDARUA Istanbul Half Marathon, a World Athletics Elite Labor Road race, clocking a stunning 1 hour, 4 minutes and 2 seconds in the Turkish city last month, a performance which saw her recognized as the April Player of the Month. The 26-year-old Kenyan, a winner of this race in 2017 and 2019, broke away from Ethiopia's Yalemze Felua in the final stages to win by 38 seconds. The event, which was conducted at Riyadh House, Nairobi, saw Chepngetich receive a washing machine and a trophy and also sponsorship in the preparations for the Tokyo event.
This award of washing machine, it has motivated me so much that I will do my best, and I still work hard for the next race, that is Olympics, to deliver a medal.
Ruth promised to do all her best to ensure that she delivers her best in the coming Tokyo Olympics. Daniel Mwendwa for Channel 1 Sports.
The Confederation of African Football, CAF, has announced the new international calendar for the 2020 FIFA World Cup qualifying matches. African countries were meant to commence their race to Qatar in June 2021, albeit the continent's football ruling body shifting its citing current challenges caused by the COVID-19 pandemic as the reason. CAF, in a statement released on Thursday, disclosed the World Cup qualification games will begin in September 2021. The qualifiers will now take place in the existing windows of September, October and November 2021, as well as March 2022. The third round will see 10 group winners from the second round drawn into 5 home and away ties. The winners of each tie will produce Africa's 5 representatives for the 2022 World Cup. On to some basketball, where Utah Jazz went past the Phoenix Suns at the top of the NBA's Western Conference standings following their 126-94 win over the San Antonio Spurs, while the Suns lost 135-103 to the Atlanta Hawks. Meanwhile, Philadelphia 76ers beat the Houston Rockets to tighten their grip at the helm of the Eastern Conference standings.
Joel Embiid paired at 4 points with 12 rebounds as the Philadelphia 76ers extended their winning streak to 6 games with a 135-115 road victory over the Houston Rockets. Shake Milton scored 19 points off the Philadelphia bench. Tobias Harris added 15 points. Backcourt of Ben Simmons and Seth Curry.
We're a good basketball team. We can win games on the road when we don't play great. I think that's a great sign in some ways. You know, this is a team that hadn't played well on the road and lost games when they did play well in the past. Now we're winning games on the road and we don't play well. I think that's a really good sign moving forward.
Philadelphia swept the season series with Houston for the first time since the 2010-2011 season and now hold a 2-game lead over the Brooklyn Nets at the top of the Eastern Conference, with the Nets taking on the Dallas Mavericks tomorrow. Third place Milwaukee Bucks won their 4th consecutive match with a 135-134 win over the Washington Wizards.
Pat Connaughton, a good 4.5, 5 feet behind the three-point line.
The paint.
Connaughton runs and flushes. Giannis, yes.
Secondary defenders there to prevent that. Nice.
In the Western Conference, the Utah Jazz regained top spot on the standings after registering a 126-94 victory over the San Antonio Spurs.
Rudy got back, and the reward is an easy layup. Back to Joe, back to Clark, behind the back pass, Niang, bang! Steps back, resets with 11 on the shot clock. He'll drive in on the big man, off the glass. Oh, what a move.
Phoenix Suns, on the other hand, are now second after losing 103-135 to the Atlanta Hawks. Third place Denver Nuggets were 113-97 winners over the New York Knicks.
On to football, where Mikel Arteta says Arsenal will take the biggest step forward if they reach the Europa League final by overcoming Villarreal in the second leg of their semi-final tie tonight. Meanwhile, Chelsea will face Manchester City in the Champions League final in Istanbul after convincingly overcoming Real Madrid 2-0 at Stamford Bridge.
On a night of high tension, even behind closed doors, Chelsea fully deserved a victory that sets up an all-English final against Pep Guardiola's Premier League leaders on 29th May. The draw they achieved in Madrid when Timo Werner headed in from almost on the goal line in at the 28th minute.
Against Manchester City, surely secures.
The outstanding Kante, who was also instrumental in the opening goal, fed a substitute Christian Pulisic, and his cross was standing by Mount with the chance to make amends for the 2020 Champions League final when his Paris Saint-Germain side lost to Bayern Munich.
And the heads were never down, heads were always up, even after these big chances that we missed. Always stayed positive, and we never regret something, so it was fantastic. Job is not done yet. We are in final, we are in 2 finals now, and the sacrifice I personally gave is worth it since day one.
Meanwhile, Mikel Arteta says Arsenal will take the biggest step forward if they reach the Europa League final by overcoming Villarreal in the second leg of their semi-final tie on Thursday. Villarreal won the first leg in Spain a week ago, but Nicolas Pepe's second half penalty handed Arteta's side a crucial away goal. Arsenal reached the Europa League final in 2019 under the current Villarreal boss Unai Emery, but were beaten 4-1 in Baku by Premier League rivals Chelsea. In another match, Manchester United holds a 6-2 advantage over Roma before the second leg of the Europa League semi-final in Italy tonight. Midfielder Daniel James has not travelled with the United squad because of his injury. He joins a forward Anthony Martial and defender Phil Jones on the sidelines, with teenage wingers Amad Diallo and Anthony Elanga named as part of the 24-man squad. Yusuf Farah for Channel 1 Sports.
And with that, we come to the end of Business Insight for today. Thank you so much indeed for your time. And news just coming in from the National Assembly is that members of Parliament have finally passed the BBI bill. And now it's likely to go to the people for referendum. And of course, we're watching to see how that will pan out. Well, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much indeed. Remember, Inside the Government is coming up next. Tonight we focus on tea reforms coming after about a week after the Ministry of Agriculture set up the tea prices stabilization task force to look into the issues of pricing. What is the way forward? Stay right here for that and more. For me and the rest of the team, it's a good night and enjoy the rest of your viewing.
It is the 6th of May, the year 2021. Welcome to your Channel 1 weather updates. My name is Yusuf Farah. Now tonight, rainfall is expected to continue in several parts of the country with strong southeasterly winds of up to 25 knots blowing over the counties of Turkana, the north coast and areas of Kitui. Kericho is the coldest tonight with temperatures dropping to 12 degrees Celsius. Remember to keep warm in those areas. Tomorrow morning, showers accompanied by sunny intervals in the coastal region areas of Mombasa, Malindi, Kilifi and its environs. The capital city wakes up to rains accompanied by partly cloudy conditions and sunny intervals in the morning. Areas of Machakos, Makindu and Voi, sunny intervals in the morning. In the northeastern region, areas of Mandera, Garissa and Isiolo, chances of a rain in the morning accompanied by sunny intervals. Areas of Lodo all the way to the Lake Turkana Basin, rains in the morning accompanied by sunny intervals. In the afternoon, showers accompanied by thunderstorms in areas of Kisumu, Kitale, Kericho, Eldoret, all the way to Lodwar. The capital city continues to experience rain in the afternoon accompanied by sunny intervals. Showers accompanied by sunny intervals continue dominating the coastal region in the afternoon. In the northeastern region, showers accompanied by sunny intervals. The areas of the Lake Turkana Basin and areas bordering Kenya and South Sudan, sunny intervals with chances of a rain in the afternoon. As far as the temperatures are concerned, highs of 35, lows of 26 in Mandera, 36 by 24 in Garissa, the capital city, highs of 25 and lows of 15. That's your local weather focus. The international weather focus is coming up in a bit. Again, many thanks for keeping it Channel 1. Until I see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Do have yourselves a blessed night.
Vera Beauty College.
Vera Beauty and Fashion College, with branches in Nairobi, Eldoret, Thika and Meru. Did you know that we are a TVET approved institution? We offer courses in fashion design, interior design in soft furnishing, event decoration, flower arrangement, event planning, hairdressing, barbering and dreadlocks, beauty therapy, makeup, nail technology, spa massages, teaching skills, TOT, solo business management, and many more. Register now and visit our website on www.verabeautycollege.com. You can also call on 0725 923 550 Nairobi branch, 0728 087 689 Eldoret branch, 0722 22 7428 Thika branch, 0725 000 706 Meru branch. Vera Beauty and Fashion College, a TVET approved institution.
Jumapili hii kwenye runinga ya KBC, ungana naye Askofu Michael Wanderi wa kanisa la Christian Foundation Fellowship Kiambu kuanzia saa 1 hadi saa 2 asubuhi.
Ningetaka nikwambie, our Jehovah God, because the Bible says he is the same yesterday, today and forevermore. He is able to take you to a place of abundance. He is able to take you to Rehoboth in the name of Jesus Christ.
Kipindi ni neno la neema, ukiletewa naye Askofu Michael Wanderi wa kanisa la Christian Foundation Fellowship Kiambu. Usikose.
Tunakupa burudani.
Na umbea, yani stories zinazo trend kwenye mitandao ya kijamii.
See baby, now we are two in one. We are two in one. Interview kali za wasanii wapendao. Mguu pande panda milima, aoye izungushie hapo ma. Kama una
ndani ya March of Life kupitia KBC Channel 1 na Pwani FM.
Kuanzia mida ya saa 3 mpaka mida ya 5 kamili asubuhi. Ukiwa nami ni Teken 1GB.
Mimi ni Marco. Keep it locked.
Malewa.
This weekend on KBC Channel 1.
Oh man, now you want to turn such a beautiful progress into a meaningless fight.
Julia, what are you trying to say? That me and Mwalimu are together. Look at you. You need to apologize. Shame on you to me.
If you want to be part of this conversation, you have to speak in a language we all understand. Siti wewe.
Mimi nizidi? Nani anizidishe? Kukuru kama wewe, nakwambia katululu kako utameza.
How can a huge person like that be beaten by a woman?
What could have teacher done Swahili? Poor mwalimu.
Classmates, every Saturday on KBC.
This month, we saw the formation of the Tea Industry Price Stabilization Task Force by the Ministry of Agriculture. The chairperson is Irongo Nyakera. He's now joining us to help us understand what is the role of this committee and what does it involve, and how are they going to ensure there is price stability in the tea subsector. Thank you very much indeed, Bwana Irongo, for finding time to be with us here.
Oh, thank you very much also for inviting me. And even before we go further, we'll say thank KBC. Actually has really championed the cause of the farmers. And I know we've been here a number of times where we've been speaking about the reforms that are coming in the tea and coffee sector. And we are happy that we are where we are, because we are almost at the tail end of the reform process.
Mm-hmm. I mean, one would say that, I mean, your work is well cut out for you. But when you bear in mind that this is not the first time that, various committees have been put in place to try and come up with remedial measures on how to deal with the challenges in the tea industry, one is poised to ask, where do you start and where do you go from here?
Yeah, you see, unfortunately, where we've gotten is where we have to get to the end of this fight. Otherwise, if we leave it in the middle, we'll actually it will eat all those gains that we've made, because it's really about the confidence that the farmers are getting, the confidence that the citizens are getting in seeing that the government is getting involved in a matter so important to all of them. So in terms of the task force, the task force is actually driven by the T Act, which was signed by the President on December 23rd last year. And the task force, the role is actually to create a price stabilization mechanism to guarantee farmers a minimum payment on their tea gate prices. So we'll actually be having our first meeting this week, and during which meeting we'll agree on, discuss on the TORs as well as the work plan to ensure that we highlight the right stakeholders. We are able to come out, meet with them, engage with them, understand very well where the shoe pinches the most and where we should be targeting in terms of providing a price stabilization mechanism. Kenya is not the first country to carry out a price stabilization mechanism, and it of course won't be the last, but there is a very successful model that has been done in countries like India. There are some that have failed in countries like Colombia, where because the people who did it came from a political angle, within the first year all the money that had been put out for price stabilization, which was $350 million, was paid out to farmers. So our model will be where we guarantee farmers that their production cost is paid on any year, and then to find a self-sustaining way to ensure that this fund is not just for this year. It's actually up for the next 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 years.
How do you ensure, how are you going to ensure that, the model that you are going to embrace does not fail you or the farmers?
Yeah, it's really not a hedge, because a hedge is where you anticipate movement in prices. But here we are looking at creating a floor for the farmers based on their own production costs, and at the same time creating a ceiling such that should prices go above a certain price, the farmers also don't take that money. That money goes into the fund to ensure that that fund becomes fully sustainable. In doing all this, it's looking at what are the different areas where there's significant price movement that could affect the price, the ultimate farm gate price for the farmers. One is the auction. How's the tea sold? How do you ensure that the price achieved at the auction is high enough so that we'll never get to the point of compensating farmers, in that the price will always be higher. And you'll see that within the Tea Act, there are lots of recommendations, actually there are lots of mechanisms. There are a number of mechanisms which play out to ensure that there's transparency and there's real price discovery within the auction, and that includes having the factories being members of the auction, ensuring that 100% of teas are sold through the auction, and even ensuring that the bidders, there's an IT online system that actually the bidders can use to ensure that there's real, there are no shenanigans and hidden price movements. Second is about the production costs and the transaction costs, because this is the next level of where currently it costs the farmer about 40% of their ultimate auction price, so that the farmer is currently only getting 60%. The task force reports that have been done before 2007 and 2016 all have recommended that the farmer should take home 75%. So there's a 15% that is lost currently. Yeah, how do you ensure? Because even if there's no movement in the auction price and we take away this 15% that is getting lost, then the farm gate prices will automatically come up, and it will also mean that the farmer benefits in that way. So what caused specifically? We've seen the mismanagement and misuse of farmer money at KTDA. We've seen the high commissions payable to brokers have been halved from 1.5% to 0.75%. We have seen that the commission payable to KTDA or the management agent has been brought down from 2.5% to 1.5%. We need solutions on logistics, on warehousing, on the factory operations itself, so that these costs can actually come down, to ensure that at the end of the day, the person that we are all taking care of is that farmer. So in the price stabilization fund might not be the one that guides on all this, because there are different players. There is a T-board, there are factory, the factory companies themselves who are doing all this work, but then there should be a check provided by the fund to ensure that it informs and is able to audit should it see that there are areas that farmers can benefit from and they're not.
And when you're talking about, setting up this fund, are you imagining a situation whereby this will be done without Kenya Tea Development Agency, or what would happen? Or what would be the role of KTDA in all these metrics?
You see, KTD, and we always say that, KTD is a very good structure. It has a very good structure. It's actually it is the best small-scale aggregator in the world. The problem herein is some individuals within KDDA who've captured it for their own personal interest and gains. And those are the individuals we want to remove through the current reform process. And what then that means is that KTDA's role, KTDA was brought in and put in place to be able to aggregate and provide real value, economic value to the small-scale farmers. So that role continues for KTDA. Like I was talking about the auction prices, KTDA's key function is marketing their tea. So by them marketing widely and to the right people, to the right partners through bilateral engagements even, then you're able to even raise that auction price. So KTDA's role continues to being very critical. There are certain areas that have been removed, and those are areas around governance where it was felt that a KTDA fully encroached on the roles of the boards of the factories and disallowed them or did not give them enough space for them to perform their duties. So that is actually the only thing that has been moved away from KTDA, and mostly it's through removing the company secretary role that KTDA was playing in each factory and moving that role to the factories. That means then that the factories are able to elect their own directors, they're able to monitor their own production, they're able to oversight on the sale process of their tea, to be able to provide checks and balances to see that there is no loss and that they're getting real value for the farmers.
And when you look at the Tea Act, I mean, it spells out so many things that are supposed to happen in this country in order for us to get to a point where we can say now the Kenya's tea industry is competitive and sustainable going forward. And one of them is the establishment of the Price Stabilization Fund. Are we working within a certain time frame before too much water passes under the bridge, and say that this time around we have ABCD in place?
Yeah, each of those reforms items have a timeline, and it's only that the KTDA went to court 8 times so far to stop the Tea Act from being implemented. But once we have the new directors who will immediately withdraw from their cases and fire the lawyer who has been appointed by KTD to represent these factories, then we'll be able now to start implementing, or the ministry will start implementing the Tea Act. Things like the stabilization, price stabilization, as a committee, we've only been given 2 months to be able to come up with a mechanism so that from there the minister can start working with Treasury on how to provide some seed funding or or work with other stakeholders on how to get some funds in place, because the idea is that within the next few months, the price mechanism should be up and going. The other areas, the areas around governance, those are taking shape immediately because we already have elections that are happening. So we expect that within the next 6 months, after the Tea Act has been now allowed to operationalize, most of the things within it will already have been implemented.
Mm-hmm. And one of the challenges, that is, quite often quoted about how to deal with the crisis that is facing the Kenyan tea industry. When you look at the two biggest tea producers in the world, and that is China and India, you realize that they consume more than 60% of their tea. Like when you look at China, I mean, they consume almost 90% of their tea. But when you look at Kenya, 90% is what we sell to the world. What are we going to do to stimulate a culture, of tea consumption here in Kenya? Because that is one way of guaranteed better returns.
Yeah, it's actually very interesting because Kenya is actually the largest global exporter of tea.
Black tea.
Black tea. We actually export 22% of all the global teas. As a country, we export 95% of our tea and only consume 5%.
Yeah.
Of the tea that we export 98% of it just in black tea and 2% in value-added tea. So that tells you that there's a lot that needs to be done. There's a lot that needs to be done to push or encourage consumption of our teas. Probably we need to have diverse value addition. In the Act, it says within the next 5 years, 40% of the tea exported has to be value-added. You see, once you have value-added tea, you can also use it in different forms, and you see that will increase the consumption of the tea. It's like milk. You see, as milk alone, the consumption might not be as high. But now when you make it yogurt, when you make it cheese, when you provide all these other different things, coffee is the same. Coffee we only consume again 5%, but we need to have other ways of encouraging consumption of the same. So I think these are the roles that even KTDA, these are the things that KTD should be thinking about. How do we value add our tea? How do we create that cottage industry that both creates jobs as well as ensures that our farmers and our country gets higher monies through our GDP from sale of tea.
What our task force is going to do is to develop proposals and make submissions to the government as to what you believe should happen. And we know beautiful documents have been crafted in this country, and breakthrough proposals they have been made. But when it comes to the implementation, that is where we fail. As a task force, and as a chair, what do you plan to do to ensure that there is follow through to your recommendations?
I agree with you 100%. There are lots of good plans, good ideas, all attracting dust in the shelves and in drawers. But we're very lucky, I think, on this tea issue, because this is an issue that the president is behind 100%. And it's an issue that the president has given full mandate to the Minister of Agriculture, Peter Munya, to be able to actualize. And it is one thing that the minister himself is following through to ensure that it is delivered. Unlike other committees, actually, for me, I only found out through the media that I had been appointed as chairman. That shows that the minister created it not to reward anyone or to do anything. He actually wanted it just to be actualized. Because as soon as he did, I was called and I was told, we need a meeting, we have a budget, we want to ensure that this thing is out within the next 2 months, so that now the minister can have a proposal to present to the president on way forward on this matter. So there is a lot of goodwill from the president. As you know, tea is in 17 counties. We've been doing the elections of the factory directors, and you can see how interested, how involved each of these farmers from all the counties. Last week in Kisii and Nyamira, I remember for a factory that has over 8,000 members, over 50% of them showing up for these elections. It's more than by elections. They're actually keen to see that reforms actually happen. And it's good that the ministry and the government in general, through the president, have actually fully supported this implementation.
And when you talk to experts, in the tea industry, they will tell you that another issue that needs to be addressed here in Kenya is the mechanization of tea picking process here in Kenya. And currently, we know this has been a challenge, and it has been fought in court, whereby you find that 90% of Kenyan tea, is hand-picked. And when you look to other successful tea-growing nations like China, 95% of their tea is picked by machines. And so that's enhancing efficiency. Is this something that you're going to look at, as a task force?
Not really as a task force, but I know as an industry, it's something that they're already looking at. You see, in those countries also, you'll find that the cost of labor is quite high. So, and that's why mechanization makes sense. In Kenya, the cost of labor is still not as high, and the levels of unemployment means that by it being hand-picked, there are social issues that we're able to cure, and hence why you see that it's not a serious urgency. Secondly, for you to have the quality of tea that we deliver as Kenya, then it needs to be hand-picked. When you do the machine picks, you see the machine does not do the 2 leaves and a bud. It picks a certain level. And you find that the issue with doing that is that the quality of the tea becomes lower, plus also the productivity of those bushes, because it takes longer for the bushes to recover when they're cut at those levels. When you just do the 2 leaves and a bud, the next one just springs up immediately. And so those there are simulations that we need to do. We need to look at what's the impact on quality, and of that impact, how much of it is translated to a loss of price. And then if you think about now the money that is paid to the by the farmer to the picker, is it less or more? In which case then someone can say, okay, let me substitute this farmer picker with this, or let me continue with just using the picker.
But it's also a question of, the world is moving to the era of digitization and mechanization. So for how long do you think that condition can prevail?
It's not something that will be fought, because as I'm saying, if it makes economic sense, you see, if I have 100 acres, then it makes sense for me to use that. My quality will come down, and so will my price. But maybe when I look at it vis-a-vis the savings on having pickers, I might decide, let me go with it. But for the small-scale farmers, which is 70% of them, who have an acre and less, then it might not make as much sense unless it's where they buy one and collaborate amongst themselves on how to use it. But it's something that I saw, like yesterday, I saw a demo that was being done in Nyeri on those machines. So they are here, they are coming, and nobody's stopping them. So as long as it makes commercial sense to the farmers, then it's something we'd encourage. The only thing is we need to look at the quality, because the quality of the Kenya tea is the way it is, and as high as it is because of the hand-picked.
Let's also talk about production, at the farm level and even at the factory level, whereby a lot of things have been said about our production designs, and there's a school of thought that believe that there's a high level of production wastage, at the factory level, at the picking level. And this is where probably we need to look at in a bit to reduce these, to increase our production. Is this something that you agree with, and would you be looking at this as well?
Yeah, 100%. You see, even when we look at things like the outturn, how many kilograms of green leaf are converted to the black CTC, you find that for some factories, it's as in other countries, is just 2.5 kilograms, 3 kilograms, but for ours, it's as much as 4.5 kilograms. So it means that you're already losing at that level. And so what do you need to do to ensure that you improve that, to bring it to the average of your 20, 22, 25%, 26% range, which is the normal global average of that. Secondly, you see, because of the duplication of functions between KTDA, or the management company, and the factories, you find some of these costs are layered and they're not necessary. You find that there's a regional manager, you find that there's a factory manager, you find there's another manager employed by the factory. So you find that there's so many duplicated, there are so many duplicated roles that can be eliminated to bring, to create a very streamlined and small functional factory that then is able to deliver. And that's what I'm saying, for us to be able to move from the current 40% to 15%, 40% loss to 25%. So in that way, saving 15%. There's a lot that needs to be done, and we have to be innovative to ensure that we're able to deliver that.
As a task force, are you likely to embark on international benchmarking mission to see what exactly other countries are doing right, that we are doing wrong here, that can improve and help farmers, get the best yields out of their crop?
Yeah, the benchmarking that we'll do is more around what has been done before. It's not the first time that Kenya is looking at a possible price stabilization mechanism, 40. There was a report that was done years ago by Food and Agricultural Organization. There's a number of reports studies that have been done by University of Nairobi. There are a number of reports that have been done by the Ministry of Agriculture, as well as AFA, the Agriculture and Food Authority. So what we'll do is we'll bring all those together. Yeah, a lot of times these things were being done without the real intention of actualizing the stabilization mechanism. So with that, and now speaking to the different stakeholders and being able later on to validate whether there's anything further that they want from it. And within the task force, we have the Treasury, we have Central Bank, all these represented, so that we are able to come up with policies and a structure and design something that actually becomes implementable.
How long is your mandate?
2 months.
2 months?
Yeah, 2 months.
Within 60 days, I mean, realistically speaking, and, looking at the work that your task force has to do, I mean, are you convinced that you can deliver credible and well thought out proposals to the table?
As I said, it's not the first time the country has taken a stab at it, and we've involved some of the teams that were working on the previous ones, so that we can quickly go into why did this work, why was this rejected, what do we need to do to change it, what else do we need to incorporate from these prior designs to ensure that this actually is actualized. Of course, if we feel that after the 60 days that we need a bit more time, I'm sure we'll get that additional time. But my hope is that we can be able to deliver, because time is moving. We are moving to a very political season, and we'd want that this stabilization fund is not caught up in the politics, and that it is passed much earlier.
So once you make your task force a report to the Ministry of Agriculture, what's next?
From there is the minister to take it up with the cabinet and the presidency to see how to actualize it. Yeah.
What is the list would you expect from that process?
What's the?
What is the list action would you expect from that report?
adoption for sure, and funding. You know, it needs to be funded. Yeah, we've seen other farmers funded. We've seen during the Starbucks coffee farmers funded. We've seen coffee debts waived. We have seen tea farmers, maize farmers getting subsidies in fertilizer. So all these farmers are getting something. Tea farmers are 660,000, meaning that there's about 5 million dependents on tea. So it's a big, it's actually a huge initiative that will touch on very many lives and livelihoods and actual farmers. So the very least that the government can do is be able to seed the fund and adopt a model that actually works for farmers.
As we wind up this interview, tell me things, from where you sit or from where you stand, and you know you have a long dalliance with the tea industry in this country, what should farmers expect from your task force?
I think what farmers should expect is a mechanism that they've been crying for. This is what has been talked about as the minimum guaranteed return. And that's what we want to be able to deliver to them. It's not going to be easy. We'll have to balance because, as I said, farmers, we need to look at what's the production price, what's the production cost, how much, what are we trying to safeguard the farmer from going below. And also that the basket of funds is not limitless. So we need to find a balance so that we have a fund that actually serves the interest of the farmers, but also that is sustainable, that it will fund them for as long as possible. As you're seeing, all these things did not start with him. He found a lot of things there, but they were stuck. They were all in cardboards. They were all in these drawers. And he's been able to remove each and every one of them and look at what's actually going to be good for these farmers. And he's been able to deliver on that. And it's been felt, actually, way before a lot of these farmers were feeling very desperate. Over time, they're feeling that some solutions are coming. Yeah. So I think to the farmers is to tell them that actually these solutions are coming.
Good. Thank you so very much indeed, Chairman, for joining us here on Inside Government.
Thank you very much for hosting me.
Irongo Nyakere is the chairperson of the Tea Industry Price Stabilization Task Force that was formed by the Ministry of Agriculture to look into the issues of pricing and how to stabilize tea prices for farmers. You have been watching Inside Government. My name is O'Brien Kimani. As always, we do these every Thursday, same time right here on KBC Channel 1. Thank you for your time. We'll see you again on Thursday. Have a good night.
Next on
kwanza kisha tukamwone wako.
Ameshafika tayari?
Hata mimi nishafika na ngoja mtoto amshwe.
Hapa naona kidogo tumechanganyana kaka. Hapa ndio kwangu. Utasikia bwana?
Hapa
Saumu.
Uolewi wewe?
Kwa hivyo ulisikia sababu sijaolewa nitolewa na kijitakataka chochote kitakachokuja, si ndio?
Huyu nani huyu? Huyu
Baba mtoto.
Umesema nini wewe? Huyu baba mtoto huyu?
Wewe